Hello children, and welcome to today's collective worship. I'm just going to share my screen with you as we begin our collective worship today. So I'd like to start by saying, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Now today, children, we are going to be sharing a story from the Bible. And this story links with the new Christian value that we're going to be thinking about all this half term. And the Christian value is truthfulness. So the story today that we're going to listen to will help us understand what we mean by the word truthfulness. Jacob was a Hebrew who lived in Canaan. He had 12 sons. Jacob's favourite son was Joseph, and you might notice Joseph right at the very front because he had a beautiful coloured coat. And Jacob gave Joseph this coat as a present, and it was known as an expensive coat of many colours. This unfortunately made Joseph's brothers very angry and jealous, as you can see by the looks on their faces. One night, Joseph had a strange dream. He told his brothers how they had all been in the harvest field tying up the corn when their sheaves of corn bowed down to his. Some of his brothers thought that his dreams were quite strange. But Joseph was very passionate about these and always shared his dreams. Another time, Joseph dreamt that the sun and the moon and 11 stars were all bowing down to him. Again, he told his brothers, but it made them angry. They guessed that the dream was about them bowing down to Joseph. One day, Joseph went to check on his brothers in the fields. When they saw Joseph, they wanted to kill him. They weren't being very nice to Joseph, but instead they decided to put him into a deep pit, which was very unkind. Soon after, some merchants came by. They were on their way to Egypt. The brothers saw the merchants and decided to sell Joseph, and they made some money. They thought this would make their father very proud. They took Joseph's very special coat and handed it over and sold him for 20 silver coins. Imagine how poor Joseph felt at this point. The brothers dipped Joseph's coat into goat's blood and took it to their father. They were not being very truthful to the father, because Jacob believed Joseph must have died, and he was very, very upset to have lost his favourite son. Meanwhile, Joseph was taken to Egypt and sold as a slave to a rich man who was called Potiphar. He worked hard and was soon put in charge of Potiphar's house and all the other slaves that worked for Potiphar. Sadly, Joseph soon got into trouble again. He unfortunately made Potiphar's wife very angry, and she made up lies and told Potiphar that he wasn't a very nice person, but unfortunately she wasn't telling the truth. Poor Joseph was put into prison. While he was there, 2 men who had worked for the Pharaoh were also locked up. The baker who was in there told Joseph a strange dream he'd been having. Joseph explained the dream to him, but unfortunately, the news in the dream was bad. The cupbearer, who was also in the prison with Joseph, had also been having a strange dream. He told Joseph all about it as well. Joseph said to him, "This is good news." A few days later, the cupbearer was released, and Joseph said to him, Please always remember me." A while later, the Pharaoh himself started to have strange dreams. No one could tell him what they meant. He was very confused. The cupbearer told the Pharaoh about Joseph, who was still in prison. He told him how Joseph had explained his dream. So Joseph was sent for, and the Pharaoh started to explain his dreams to Joseph. In one dream, 7 fat cows came out of the river Nile, followed by 7 thin cows. Whatever did these dreams mean? In the second dream, 7 fat stalks of corn were eaten by 7 thin ones. Joseph explained the dreams to the Pharaoh. He said there would be 7 good years of harvest, followed by 7 years of famine. He told the Pharaoh that they must store the corn that they harvested so that nobody would starve. He realized that Joseph was telling the truth, and he thought Joseph was a very important person, so he made him a governor. Back in Canaan, Jacob and his sons were starving. Jacob sent 10 of his sons to Egypt to buy corn from the governor. When they got to Egypt, they didn't realize that it was Joseph, their brother. Joseph wasn't happy with them and accused them of being spies and said that he would only give them grain, but they must return with their youngest brother, and Simeon would have to stay in prison. This was, of course, a test for his brothers, who hadn't been very nice to Joseph, if you remember. They soon returned to Egypt with Benjamin, the youngest brother, and Joseph welcomed them and set Simeon free. On their way home, a horseman came up, accusing them of stealing the governor's silver cup. To their horror, they found, even though Benjamin had denied it, that it was in his pack. There it was. He hadn't told the truth. So they were all taken back to the palace. This was all part of Joseph's plan to find out what kind of people his brothers had become. When Joseph saw that his brothers had actually changed and they had become true to themselves, he was very proud and he hugged them. Soon afterwards, the whole family moved to Egypt to be with Joseph. Jacob was reunited with his sons and was very proud of all of them. Now, I explained at the beginning of this collective worship, we were thinking about the Christian value truthfulness. I'd like you just to have a little think about the story we've listened to. What does that actually mean, being truthful? Have a little think to yourself. What does it mean if we ask people to tell the truth? Now think back to the story. There were several people in this story that didn't tell the truth. Can you remember who they are? Have a think to yourself and see if you can remember who those characters were. And now I would like you to think, why is being truthful so important? Why do you think it is important to always tell the truth? And as we're thinking about that, I'd like us all just to have a moment, maybe close your eyes or put your hands together, and we're just going to say a little prayer. Dear God, help us to think about the importance of the Christian value truthfulness. Help us to understand what it means to tell the truth, and help us to remember the importance. When sometimes we have temptation, sometimes We think, should I tell the truth? Always remember the importance of remembering to always tell the truth. Amen. Thank you for listening to that, children. And hopefully we will explore this a lot more this half term with some other stories or other things to think about. Thank you for listening, children. Bye-bye.